All right. Hello, everyone out there. I'm just going to get some stuff ready here. Hopefully, Den will be joining us, I hope, soon to help out with moderation and all that good stuff. And thanks again for joining in. I was gone last week, so it's kind of nice to be back and be able to talk about this so much stuff that has happened. You can support the channel by going to patreon.com/Hemant. I appreciate that. And of course, if you want any questions answered during any of this, leave a super chat. I will absolutely get to it in between stories. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments as well. I will make sure if Den is not here that I pause between stories and look through all those. So let me start tonight with a story that I was shocked by only because I'm kind of glad to see how much backlash it received. And it involves an evangelical pastor who is getting a lot of criticism after basically telling a new bride something very inappropriate on her wedding night. And I have some clips for you as we go through this. And if you don't know what story this is, I don't know, maybe you'll be shocked when you see this. So the pastor in question, his name is Josh Howerton. He leads Lake Point Church, which is a mega church in Rockwall, Texas. I believe it's one of the fastest growing churches in Texas. So you get the idea. It's in one of those non-denominational places where every stereotype you think about evangelicals, it's a church like this. And this sermon that he delivered was actually delivered on February 24th, but it only started getting attention like in the past week for reasons I'll explain later. But let me set you up before I play you this clip. His church had just had like a marriage night event right before this Sunday sermon. And I think that was an event designed for newly married couples, like to navigate the path forward through their marriage. And so it had just happened. It was a big thing. They had been advertising it for a while. And the pastor, Josh Howerton, is basically saying to his crowd, to his congregation, people are asking me, what did you all discuss at that event? And of course, he's not going to rehash the entire thing in the span of 30 seconds. So instead of telling them everything that happened, he decided to give them what he calls a gold nugget of advice. And I want you to remember that word, advice, because he's going to deny that it's advice later. He's going to offer everybody a gold nugget of advice in the form of a joke. He thinks it's a hilarious joke. All right. And this is some advice for everyone in the congregation who may be on the path toward marriage. Okay. So I'm going to play you the first half of this clip, and then we'll talk about this in just a second.
This is a gold nugget of advice I was given by a mentor. Okay, so this is free. Can y'all handle that? Okay, this is free. This is free. Okay. Now first, let me do this. So let me talk to the guys first. Guys, when it comes to her wedding day, she has been planning this day her entire life. She got her first wedding magazine when she was 14. She draped the blanket around her like it was her wedding dress when she was a teenager. She did the towel over her head. It was a little veil, all the stuff. She's been planning this day her whole life. So here's what you need to do, man. When it comes to that day, just stand where she tells you to stand, wear what she tells you to wear, and do what she tells you to do. You'll make her the happiest woman in the world, okay?
Okay. I mean, I don't love that advice, mostly because it suggests that every woman is the exact same, that every woman has been thinking about her wedding, and literally nothing else has ever taken on that sort of magnitude her entire life, as if the goal of every woman is to get married and it all goes downhill from there. I mean, it's just a very stereotypical way of looking at marriage. But obviously, he's not meaning any harm by that. So, okay, fine. By the way, it also suggests, it's her wedding day. It's not yours, men. It's not your wedding day. You don't have to deal with any of the planning, apparently. You don't have to deal with the stress that comes with the wedding. It's her wedding day. You just show up and look nice, she'll take care of everything else. Like, that's a lot of burden to put on any one person. So I don't love that advice, but okay, it's not that big of a deal. He didn't mean any of that. Whatever. That was part 1 of what he said. And I will now play you this. That was the setup to his joke. Let me show you the punchline, because this is where things really just go off the rail. Okay?
Now, I got an amen. Let's see if you amen this. Now, ladies, when it comes to his wedding night, he has been planning this day his whole life. So just stand where he tells you to stand, wear what he tells you to wear, and do what he tells you to do, and you're going to make him the happiest man in the world. That's it, man. Okay. That was free. That was free. Acts chapter 1.
How's that for a segue? Let's go to the Bible now that I've told you a sex joke. This is, I guess, what's known in evangelical circles as humor, and what's known outside evangelical circles as the reason we left church. So, look, I'll get this out of the way. I don't think whatever you're thinking, I don't think that was his intention. I'm sure he would condemn any horrible insinuation he's making with that joke. But I do think it's worth talking about the crux of this joke, because I think it says a lot about white evangelical culture, Christian culture, purity culture, and the double standards that exist in Christian circles, and what evangelical men think about evangelical women. Like, in order for that joke, and you should just assume I'm saying joke every time with big quote fingers and stuff, that only makes sense if we're assuming a handful of things. One, as I've already mentioned, is that the husband does not have any say in the wedding itself, in the ceremony, doesn't have any say in it, doesn't even really care about it. Apparently, all he has to do is show up. That's assumed for this joke to make sense, right? It's her wedding day. Okay. Number 2, it assumes that both people getting married are virgins, which is, I mean, it's a weird assumption to make, even in conservative Christian circles, because I have heard many stories about what all you people do at Bible camp in the summer. So, okay, it's assuming they're both virgins. There's a whole bunch we could say about how that's definitely not the case, and how they shame people, usually women, who are not virgins. But okay, separate issue. I won't talk about that here. It also assumes, like I said, that the bride has no other ambition in life other than to get married. And I think that's messed up. It's all she's ever dreamed about. But this is the important bit. For this joke to make any sense, it assumes that the woman must do whatever her husband wants in the bedroom, and her own pleasure is, at best, an afterthought, because it is his wedding night. It was her wedding day, but it's his night, and he gets to do whatever he wants. So, ladies, just stand where he tells you to stand, wear what he tells you to wear, and do what he tells you to do. And you get no say in what happens. You just have to do whatever your husband says. It's also weird because it suggests that these two virgins who just got married, presumably because they're virgins, they don't know anything about sex. And that's why this joke makes sense, right? Because the wedding night is the first time they're allowed to have sex in that culture. But how come, if they're both virgins, how come the guy is apparently a total expert? He knows exactly what he wants his wife to wear. He knows exactly what he wants her to do. Like, how would he know all that if he is also an inexperienced virgin? Like, that's weird. That goes unstated, but it is weird. It also, by the way, it assumes that this couple has to have sex on their wedding night. And if you've ever had a wedding, you know how stressful and exhausting that day is. Everything may go beautifully and perfectly well, and it may be a wonderful day in your life, and that's great, but it is exhausting. I mean, I think most couples I've ever met are like, yeah, after our wedding, we went to a hotel room or something and we passed out because we were tired. This idea that, oh no, once the wedding is over, you still have to do all this, like, that's a lot of pressure to put on two virgins. Obviously, there's no room in this joke for couples who are not straight, which is worth saying. But man, the joke hinges on the idea that this woman is obligated not to have sex with her husband, but to give sex to her husband. And he gets to dictate whatever he wants, and she's not allowed to say no. There is no consent in this joke. That is weird. And also, again, I'm not trying to pick apart a guy's unfunny joke here, but it's that mindset that bothers me because people in the congregation seem to think it was funny too, right? And as many Christians will tell you, it's that mindset that has perpetuated spousal abuse and physical abuse in white evangelical circles. Mark Driscoll, the famously abusive Christian pastor, once said women were created to be penis homes. Like that's what their use was. I also wanted to bring this up because several years ago there was a story that made the news because it involved a Southern Baptist preacher, a leader named Paige Patterson. And I want to show you this headline from the Washington Post back at the time. Southern Baptist leader pushes back after comments leak urging abused women to pray and avoid divorce. And just look at the first paragraph here. This is from, by the way, what's the date here? It's April 2018. This is years ago. The leader of a major Southern Baptist seminary issued a statement Sunday pushing back after a 2000 tape surfaced purporting to quote him, saying that abused women should focus on praying and be submissive in every way that you can and not seek divorce. Like, again, this is the mindset that exists in these circles. Specifically, this is also in the article. He basically says that if you are being abused in your relationship, you should just pray and stay. And one thing I want to show you, one really disturbing aspect of this article here. Let's read this bit together. This is from that year 2000 tape. He goes on to tell the story of a woman who came to him about abuse and how he counseled her to pray at night beside her bed quietly for God to intervene. The woman, he said, came to him later with 2 black eyes. She said, "I hope you're happy." And I said, "Yes, I'm very happy," because it turned out her husband had heard her quiet prayers and come for the first time to church the next day. He said, "See, ladies, who cares if you're abused as long as your man comes to church?" Again, this was not okay in 2000. That's why it made headlines in 2018 when that tape surfaced. Um, so the fact that in 2024, this pastor Josh Howerton in Texas, is still telling women a joke like, "Women, just stand where your husband tells you to stand and do whatever he tells you to do." Like, the bride in that joke does not get to say no. She's not permitted to chime in with, "Hey, here's what I want in the bedroom." Her orgasms are irrelevant. It's also implied that, again, she knows nothing about sex, but he knows everything about it, which is weird because we are assuming these people are virgins. This sermon was actually titled, "Am I Going to Heaven or Hell?" And I feel like his joke tells us where he's going, where he deserves to go anyway. So why, if this sermon was given in February, why did it go viral recently? Well, it's because there is a blogger, a writer. Her name is Sheila Gregoire, and she posted about this. She posted a clip. I'm showing you this here. She posted this clip back last week, and she played for you the segments I just played for you. But this is where she got to. I wanted to share this here. The number of men commenting, "It was just a joke," is so telling. Spreading messages that result in 2.5 times higher rate of vaginismus is not funny. Marital rape is not funny. Normalizing sexual coercion is not funny. Not caring at all about female pleasure is not funny. And she's right. I mean, that's, of course it's not funny. It's not funny because I hope people who hear all that are like, "Oh, dude, if that's your idea of a joke, you need to go back in time many decades to when we were making fun of our wives or something. Like, what part of that is funny to you? He did chime in. The pastor eventually chimed in. It's the only thing I could find that he posted about any of this. And this is what he said. I'm going to the second paragraph here. The person who originally posted this, that's Sheila Gregoire, she took an old preacher joke about marriage, edited out the comment immediately before aimed at men, and then very conveniently ended the clip before it's made clear it's part of a joke. I'm just going to chime in here to say, I just played for you the beginning of the joke, and I played for you a little after the end of the joke. And even in context, it's not funny. Like, the context does not help this pastor make his case. They then deceitfully presented it as my advice to women, where if all you saw was the quote or the clip they selectively edited, you don't know it was half of a joke, not advice. Buddy, you opened that segment by calling this a gold nugget of advice. Your words, not hers, not anybody else's. So, like, he's not making anything better. I will tell you that Sheila Gregoire then posted the full clip, but again, doesn't make this guy look any better. We already knew he was trying to tell a joke. The problem is the joke isn't funny, and it has a really despicable underlying message. Like, honestly, instead of talking about heaven and hell, Pastor Howard's in here, his congregation would be so much better off if he spoke about why many white evangelical women feel trapped in a misogynistic church culture that teaches them to be submissive while always putting their husband's needs above their own. But pastors like him don't have the courage to do that. Or maybe they don't have the capacity to understand why their comments are so off-putting. And that's why they keep repeating these mistakes. There was an article about this in Baptist News, Global Baptist News, and they actually quoted someone I have a lot of respect for, April Ajoy. If you're not following her on Twitter, you should. But check this out. April Ajoy, co-host of the Evangelical-ish podcast, she told Baptist News Global that rhetoric leads women to view sex and marriage as a duty, not something to enjoy. While his words were more overt, it's not niche. But look at this. Ajoy remembers, I was taught that it's the wife's job to please her husband even when she's not in the mood. I remember being a young girl at women's church events where the leaders would talk about the importance of wives putting out and how sex is something men need. And if that need wasn't met, husbands could look elsewhere. I was never once taught about female pleasure. It took me years into my own marriage and lots of therapy before I stopped objectifying myself and could actually enjoy intimacy in marriage. Like, oh my God, she nails it. And what she is saying is something I have also read and heard from so many Christians and ex-evangelicals and people who grew up in that culture. Like, the problem isn't that this pastor told a bad joke. It's that this pastor is creating an environment in his church where jokes like that get laughs. And that is the problem with all of this. Like, do you think a new bride, a woman who has been sexually assaulted by her husband, or any man for that matter, do you think any woman in that church who has been through that trauma is going to go to that guy or any leader at this church for help? No, they can't trust him because they've heard him say this joke. They know that he thinks they have an obligation to fulfill. And if they don't like it or they don't want to do it or they have a problem with it, he's not a guy you can talk to about any of this because he's not their ally. He's on the men's side here. They can get away with whatever they want. And if that's not true, he has an obligation to tell his congregation that. So now the question is, what's this pastor going to do about this? Is he just going to keep blaming the people who don't like his joke? Or is he actually going to take the criticism seriously? I know what I think he's going to do. He's going to do the latter. He's just going to pretend none of this happened and everyone who doesn't like it just doesn't get humor. But if he actually cared about the people in his congregation, there is an easy path for him to take. Show up to church on Sunday, apologize for that joke that wasn't funny, and then spend the sermon talking about why his stupid joke wasn't funny and why his church is a safe space for those women. He won't do that because his church is not. But that's the easy thing he could do. I want to leave you with one thing that someone else wrote. She said she used to go to this church. I can't confirm this, but look at what he wrote here. What she wrote here. I need to publicly apologize to everyone on Twitter for my previous words here defending my former pastor. I was blind, but I can see now. I am thanking God for prompting us to leave prior to this sermon so my 2 teenage daughters were not exposed to this spiritual abuse. Harsh words. And it's not like, I don't know if that woman has left Christianity. She may still believe in God, but she doesn't trust that church leader. She doesn't trust that church. And why should she? She has no good reason to trust that church. I am going to pause there for a bit. I just want to scroll through and make sure I haven't missed any questions before I move on to anything else, but I will just put this up here for a second. That if you have any questions, I am trying to get to them. So let me just take a second to look through these. Den is not here. It might be because I'm doing this not on my usual night. Oh, this is amusing. I assume there's a third section where he talks about wholesome gay sex. You will be surprised to know there is not. Nope, the joke ended where it ended. Just double checking. It's purity culture in the worst sort of ways. I hope you're all having a good week. While we're doing this, I would love to know if you all did anything exciting this week. Okay, I think there are no big questions outstanding, so I'm going to get ready to talk about something else. Give me 1 second here. We should talk about Richard Dawkins, shouldn't we? We should. It's been a while. Okay, I'm going to pull this up here. I got more clips for you too. Okay. Let's talk about Richard Dawkins. It's been a while because he's still on the anti-trans bandwagon, but that's not even the thing I want to talk about. This guy was all over the news this week because on Easter Sunday, a radio show in the UK somewhere, they interviewed him. And they interviewed him because they wanted to talk to him about Christianity's diminishing role in public life. Obviously, Dawkins has written about that for a while. He's spoken about it for a while. I get why they would want to talk to him. I get why they would want to do it on Easter. So that part is fine. And initially, he said that, yeah, what's wrong with that, right? He's thrilled that many people are ditching their religious beliefs. And you know what? I fully agree with him. I'm glad people are leaving. But then he went in a weird direction. There was two weird directions he went in. The first one, it's innocuous. It's not as bad, but it's still weird, and it got all the headlines. Let me play for you the first segment of this. This is the one you may have seen a lot of headlines about. And basically, what Dawkins is saying is, sure, people are losing their faith in God, but it doesn't mean like Christianity's going anywhere, and maybe that's not such a bad thing. Okay, let me play for you this first clip.
I do think that we are culturally a Christian country. I call myself a cultural Christian. I'm not a believer, but there's a distinction between being a believing Christian and being a cultural Christian. And so, I love hymns and Christmas carols, and I sort of feel at home in the Christian ethos. I feel that we are a Christian country in that sense. It's true that statistically the number of people who actually believe in Christianity is going down, and I'm happy with that. But I would not be happy if, for example, we lost all our cathedrals and our beautiful parish churches.
Okay. So Dawkins is saying he's culturally Christian. He likes churches. He likes the cathedrals and all that. And you know what? Fine. Doesn't bother me. There are a lot of people who grew up in Christian environments, Catholic churches, and even if they no longer believe in God, they do feel something when they walk into a cathedral, into a mosque, into a synagogue, even if they no longer believe in God. They have these feelings about it. They respect it. If you go to Europe or something, what do you want to do there? Let's walk to these churches. They're beautiful. I get that. I get why people are culturally, whatever religion it is they grew up with. That doesn't bother me. I saw a bunch of headlines this week saying, like, Richard Dawkins says he's culturally Christian, as if he said something mind-blowing. And that's where it got weird, because he's been saying this forever. This is not new information. He was saying all this when the God Delusion came out. This is an article. Look at the date on here from BBC. December of 2007. Dawkins, I am a cultural Christian. He has been saying this forever. He says he likes Christmas carols. He likes singing carols along with everybody else. Like, again, there's nothing weird about what he said to the BBC this week, because it doesn't make him a hypocrite. It's perfectly normal for people to say, I like certain elements of Christmas. I mean, how many atheists who are out there celebrated Easter, at least in a non-religious sense? How many of you enjoy Christmas for the same reason? Yeah, there are cultural elements of religion that we all grow up with, that many of us grow up with, that we still cling to because it's fun and it's nice and it makes us feel good. Fine, whatever. That's not weird, okay? He has a soft spot for it. I do want to point out that he carves out a space for Christianity in a cultural sense. Like, for someone who says God is a delusion, and for the new atheists who said, like, religion is poisonous or whatever the word was, he's still saying, yeah, but there are aspects of it I still like. Okay, fine. I would also point out, though, what is Christian nationalism if not cultural Christianity as practiced by one dominant group of conservative Christians? Like, what is Christian nationalism but like forcing your environment, your Christian environment, on everyone else? Because it's not like it has anything to do with Jesus or God. By suggesting that cultural Christianity is okay and that the UK is a, quote, Christian country in that sense, I think it gives unearned credibility to this idea that the US, too, is built on a foundation of Christianity, which it is not. So that's a little weird too. And by the way, the consequence of that is that our laws should somehow reflect that. That is an argument a lot of Christians have made, and that's wrong. So in America, it's never really about God's will so much as political desire. And there are always Bible verses to back up whatever goal you want to accomplish. So I don't love giving Christian culture a lot of credit necessarily, but okay, fine. But then he said something else. Dawkins said something else that did rub me the wrong way a lot, because the host of that show asked Dawkins to comment on the fact that church attendance is dropping. However, she said, there are 6,000 mosques across Europe under construction, and there are many more being planned. She said that. I'm not sure where she was getting that information from. I tried looking it up, and all I could find is an article in the Daily Mail, which is a right-wing tabloid of sorts. I wouldn't trust it, but this is the only reference I could find. To serve the religious needs of the new Muslims, like the ones entering Germany is where this article is going, there are now 6,000 mosques in Europe, with more under construction. I think that's where she got it from, but by the way, that's not what she said. This says there are 6,000 mosques in Europe and more on the way. She said there were 6,000 being built on top of what already exists. That's a total misinterpretation of what this says. So she's wrong. And in case you want a number for the sake of comparison, I'm just going to point you to this Pew Research Center article that says the Catholic Church is larger than any single religious institution in the United States, with over 17,000 parishes. So I'm just saying, there are 17,000 Catholic parishes in the US. There are 6,000 mosques across Europe. Don't really think this is anything that dramatic. It's not concerning, whatever. But going back to that Daily Mail headline for a second, this is where you know it's a right-wing tabloid. Look at the headline on this Daily Mail article. How Ramadan is muscling out Easter all over Europe. 30,000 Ramadan lights festooned across London. A Muslim crescent flag flying atop Westminster Abbey. jam-packed mosques while church pews are fast emptying. Like, man, this is just great replacement theory in the UK, isn't it? Like, we got to be worried. Muslims have gone from, like, I don't know, I'm making this up, but like 3% of the population to 4. Therefore, the 80% of us who are Christians need to be worried. It doesn't make any sense. But let me tell you what they're talking about here. This is what happened in recent days, like in London. This is an article, Ramadan lights return. They're back in London's West End for a second year, illuminating the street with a display celebrating Ramadan and Eid. And look at this. You can see this in the pictures. They lit up a street with symbols and lights honoring Ramadan. 30,000 lights in when you look up. It looks beautiful and it's cool. Like, they're not saying anything about Islam. What they're saying is there are Muslims in our community. So this is a nice thing we could do to honor them. And that seems fine. Mayor Sadiq Khan of London was there when the lights were turned on. He was there to launch the festivities, as you would expect a community leader to do when it comes to something that affects a lot of his community. What about Westminster Abbey? This is what happened there. Or I'm sorry, what did they say about like the royals? Windsor Castle hosts a Ramadan event for the first time in history. Sounds fine. There's a lot of Muslims. It's nice to see them being recognized as part of the fabric of the society. Again, I don't have any, I do not believe the religion is true, just like I don't believe any religion is true. But I appreciate when any government, when the federal government, when state governments, when they say, hey, these people are part of our citizenry and there is a meaningful day for them today. Let's honor that. Let's celebrate that. And by celebrate, all I mean is let's kind of do the bare minimum to show them some symbolic gesture that they are one of us. None of this is a problem. Like, if this is a problem for you, let it go, man. This is not church-state separation that I am talking about here, because you see this all the time. Let me just point you to a couple things Joe Biden has done, for example, and he's not alone in this. This is a tweet. Today, millions around the world will join together to celebrate Holi, the arrival of spring. This is a tweet to honor a Hindu festival. Fine. Here's Joe Biden again. This is Jill and I wish a happy and prosperous Mahavir Jayanti to all those observing. This is to honor Jains. That's what my family is. There's like 24 of us in the country. It's a small population. And yet, here's the president of the United States saying, hey, I see you. You exist in the US. You're a part of our country too. Let us just offer this symbolic tweet. It's fine. And obviously, he has done the same when it comes to like Hanukkah. The story of Hanukkah teaches us that even a little bit of light, wherever it is found, can dispel the darkness and illuminate a path forward. Does that mean Joe Biden is Jewish? No, it means he's honoring Jewish people in America. It's fine. And I bring up all that to say the things they did in the UK to honor their Muslim population and to celebrate something at a time when there's a lot of very real anti-Muslim bigotry in the world, that seems very useful and very important. They are not saying, like, let's embrace Islam. They're saying, let's show some respect to the Muslims in our community. And I appreciate that. So what did Richard Dawkins say about all of that when they asked him? Let me play you that clip because this one bothered me.
As we know, church attendance is plummeting, but the erection of mosques across Europe, I think 6,000 are under construction and there are many more, are being planned. So do you regard that as a problem? Do you think that matters?
Yes, I do really. I mean, I have to choose my words carefully. I mean, if I had to choose between Christianity and Islam, I choose Christianity every single time. I mean, it seems to me to be a fundamentally decent religion in a way that I think Islam is not.
That is a weird thing to say. And you know, he knew it was a weird thing to say because he prefaced it by like, I got to watch my words here. First of all, what's that? If I had to choose between Christianity and Islam, as if that's a binary choice anyone has to make. That's stupid. He'd choose Christianity every time. Of course he would. It's what he grew up in. It's what he knows. Religion is religion. There are bad people who will twist religion and the words of a religious text to do whatever horrible thing they want to do with it. I don't really see much of a difference just because we're kind of more used to seeing people twist Islam to do horrible things doesn't mean one of these is better than the other. But that last thing, Christianity seems to me to be a fundamentally decent religion in a way that I think Islam is not. The hell does that mean? I mean, look, coming from the United States, is Christianity a fundamentally decent religion? I mean, I could point you to things powerful conservative Christians have done in the name of faith, and none of it is decent. It, I mean, pick your month, it doesn't matter. They will harm women in the name of religion. They've done that with IVF and Roe v. Wade and overturning Roe v. Wade. They have done that against LGBTQ people. Dawkins has participated in it when it comes to trans people. Like religion has routinely been used to harm people. Christianity, I shouldn't even say religion. Christianity has been used to hurt people. And even on a broader level, forget the stuff I just mentioned, you could say their opposition to science has hurt science education in our country. You could say their love for guns and their hatred and ignorance of vaccines is harmful to all of us. So, like, the idea that Christianity is a fundamentally decent religion, I don't really buy that framing, but also, no, just because you had a nice experience in your childhood with Christianity, that doesn't mean, oh, well, it's fine. We'll all be fine if Christianity is there, as long as we're not Muslim. Like, what the hell does that mean? There are so many peaceful, fine Muslims, and it's like, what are we dismissing their whole religion for? Why does Christianity get treated with nuance in Dawkins' mind, but Islam doesn't ever get that benefit of the doubt in his mind? I do not understand that, and it's not the first time he's done this either. Let me share this with you, because this is like the quintessential Dawkins doesn't get it Twitter post on this subject. This is a picture. This is from 2018. There's Richard. He's in front of this church here, and here's what he writes. Listening to the lovely bells of Winchester, one of our great medieval cathedrals. So much nicer than the aggressive sounding Allah Akbar. Or is that just my cultural upbringing? Yeah, buddy, that's your cultural upbringing. Millions of Muslims say those words every day, and it's not offensive and it's not weird. I know some bad people have said that terminology, but notice what he's doing here. There's a sound that this church is making, and I love it. But also, terrorists say this horrible phrase, and I hate it. So I'm going to say my bells are nicer than your evil words. Like apples to oranges comparison. It doesn't make any sense. You could point to Islamic music. Maybe then we could have a comparison. And by the way, sometimes Islamic music sounds beautiful too. I don't like religious music in general. That's just me. But like, you're not even comparing the same thing here. What are you doing? Why are you saying this? He thinks one is better than the other because he's used to one of them and he really doesn't know much about the other one. And his familiarity with Christianity allows him to cling to certain elements of it and declare them good. But when other people in other religions do the exact same thing, he acts like there's something wrong with it. Like, it's such a messed up way to think. Like, look, it's one thing to say all religions are untrue, because I agree, they are. And it also makes sense to call out extremists who profess a particular religion, because those people are absolutely harmful. But like, in the US, we have red states run by conservative Christians who want to impose their religion on us, and they are a literal threat to the health and safety of a lot of people. And it is also true that there are extremists who commit horrible acts in the name of their faith. There are countless believers, though, Christian, Muslim, everything else, who condemn all those acts, who believe their faith is being twisted by zealots, and who support religious freedom and who support church-state separation. And it is irresponsible, especially for someone like Dawkins with his platform, to act like all believers of a particular faith are identical whereas his religion, his childhood religion, gets to be treated with kid fingers and like nuance. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, Dawkins is mad that believers are getting respect in some sort of way. He thinks honoring Islam in a ceremonial way, just as governments do with Christianity and Judaism all the time, that's somehow a mistake when you do it with Islam. But celebrating cultural aspects of Christianity, he says, are fine. I will say, Dawkins went on to say in that interview that Islamic texts are hostile to women and gays, which is fair. You could find those verses if you want to. But dude, have you read what's in the Bible too? It's not any better. Again, what are we talking about? We're talking about harmless celebrations of Ramadan. And Christianity obviously has been cited to oppress all those groups. He also added later in the interview, yes, Christianity is a threat in the US when it comes to science, education, and abortion rights. But then he said, in a place like Africa, where you have missionaries of both faiths operating, he puts himself on Team Christian, which is just a weird thing to say because there is very real harm Christian missionaries have done in Africa. If you watch that docuseries White Savior, you saw someone who pretended to be a doctor or who put on the aura of a doctor to take in sick kids and pretend to help them, and then a bunch of them died. Like, Christian missionaries are not okay. Like, what is he doing? Like, I get that he believes certain non-supernatural aspects of religion deserve respect because they're meaningful to him personally, but he doesn't extend the same olive branch to people who grew up in other faiths, even though their experiences are really no different. This isn't about belief. This is about believers. And the thing I heard for a long time when I was younger is that you don't have to respect their beliefs. You got to respect the believers. You respect the believers. You don't respect the beliefs. But he's not respecting believers. So what the hell? And at a time when Muslims are being demonized in both of our countries by people who equate them with zealots, he's just adding fuel to the fire. And this is what he does with trans people too. Like, at a time when anti-trans bigotry is everywhere, he's just piling on. He refuses to grasp the nuance because whatever, he doesn't feel like it. And it's just, I think it's irresponsible given his platform and his reach. And because I'm an atheist, it bothers me when like the most famous atheist says something stupid. All right, I'm going to pause there. I need a drink. Anyway, I'm looking at your thing just to see if I missed any questions before I move on to the next story. I'm sure Den will be back next week to help me out with this. Man, you guys had a lot of comments about about the Dawkins stuff. This is an interesting question. I'm confused. The UK has been cool with homosexuality, so they're not cool with trans people. My dude, Nick, they are very much not cool with trans people. It's really upsetting. J.K. Rowling is like the leader of the pack, and then there's a bunch of TERFs like right under her. It's very scary. What else? I'm just skimming through, making sure I'm not missing anything else. Someone asked this earlier, like, if you do a super chat, it is easier for me to see. I'm just like skimming just to make sure I'm not missing anything big. Okay. I am gonna jump ahead to the next story here. Let me just make sure. Closing so many tabs. Okay. I wanted to talk about this all week and I didn't get to do it. Let's talk about the Trans Day of Visibility, because somehow this turned into a giant controversy for reasons I'm sure most of you are already familiar with. But basically, Sunday, March 31st, was the Transgender Day of Visibility. Is it a real holiday? No, not really. It was started 15 years ago, but obviously it has taken on more significance as trans rights becomes, kind of at the forefront of what a lot of civil rights activists are fighting for. And the only thing you need to know about Trans Day of Visibility for this story is that it is on March 31st. That's it. And Easter, on the other hand, is not on a particular day. Easter falls on some magical, depending on where the sun and the stars are, sort of day. I don't know what the formula is, but Easter changes every year. And this year, those two dates happen to coincide. Is it a coincidence? Yes, of course it is. 100%. It just happens that way. Next year, Easter is going to fall on 420. I think last year, was it on April Fool's Day as well? Easter falls when Easter falls. It's on a random day. But this year it came on the Transgender Day of Visibility. And like Joe Biden has done for the past 4 years, he issued a proclamation. Here it is, honoring the Transgender Day of Visibility. Look at the date on this. He put it out on March 29th, so a couple days before Easter. But he says a couple things that I thought are really interesting here. Transgender Americans are part of the fabric of our nation. That's a lovely thing to say. He also pointed out here, I call upon all Americans to join us in lifting up the lives and voices of transgender people throughout our nation and to work toward eliminating violence and discrimination based on gender identity. I mean, good. This is a purely symbolic gesture, but it's a big deal coming from the president of the United States. You're not going to see that sort of thing with a lot of Republicans. You know what I mean? So, I'm glad he did it. And by the way, I also want to point out, he issued basically the same kind of proclamation on March 30th, 2023. And then, what's this? He did it on March 30th, 2022. Oh, and what's this? Here's another one on March 31st, 2021. He has put out these proclamations every year for 4 years. This is the fourth one he's done like this. So nothing out of the ordinary has happened. And yet, conservative Christians and their Republican allies saw an opportunity and they took it because they decided that Joe Biden decided by himself to declare March 31st to be the Trans Day of Visibility, specifically to go after Christians who are celebrating Easter. That's how dumb these people are. And if it's not dumb, then it's just cruel because obviously that's not what happened. Here is Donald Trump's national campaign chair, Caroline, National Press Secretary is her title. Here's her campaign. Here's her tweet. We call on Joe Biden's failing campaign and White House to issue an apology to the millions of Catholics and Christians, which, by the way, is a weird thing to say because Catholics are Christians, but Joe Biden's Catholic, so they don't want to put him in the same umbrella as Christians. Issue an apology to the millions of Catholics and Christians across America who believe tomorrow is for one celebration only, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Apparently, you're not allowed to do anything else on Easter Sunday except celebrate Easter. What if you're Muslim? Nope, sorry, better celebrate Easter. Oh, it's your birthday on Easter? I'm sorry, you don't get to celebrate it. Easter Sunday, there's only one thing you're allowed to do. And a symbolic gesture to trans people, not allowed on a Jesus day. And it didn't stop there. Is anyone going to see that tweet? I don't know. But when Speaker of the House Mike Johnson does it, the Biden White House has betrayed the central tenet of Easter, which is the resurrection of Jesus Christ, banning sacred truth and tradition while at the same time proclaiming Easter Sunday as Transgender Day. By the way, why is that in quotation marks? That's not what it is. It's not Transgender Day. It's the Day of Visibility. You're misquoting it in a weird way because that's not the meaning. It's outrageous and abhorrent. The American people are taking note. Again, this idea that you're not allowed to do anything on Easter Sunday except celebrate Easter. And also it's a coincidence. And why are all you people doing this? Seriously, these people are great. And all these people are doing it. These are just other conservatives. The Biden White House has declared Easter Sunday Trans Visibility Day. No, it is Resurrection Day. We will not bow to the new gods of your new religion. The hell are they talking about? Here's another one. Center for Baptist Leadership. We call on POTUS to repent and retract his blasphemous proclamation. Christ is risen, Christ is king, and Christ will return. Whatever. Just crazy people. This is another conservative Christian just objectively, not even from a Christian perspective, the Democrat Party, that's not what they're called, the Democrat Party is not even trying to disguise the fact that it is a faction at a kind of open war with a very large segment of the American population. So if I have this right, Joe Biden, who is devoutly Catholic, is really mad at Christians. So he finagled the calendar like 4 years ago. He decided that in 2024, he was going to stick it to Christians by issuing a proclamation that carries no legal weight. Like, seriously, are these people dumb or ignorant? Which is it? This is great. This is from Tony Perkins, the conservative Christian Confederacy loving hate group leader. Something about Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Again, it's all Jesus shit, but then, of course, there's a link to the proclamation at the bottom, as if this is what Joe Biden should have said, not the other thing. And then, of course, Franklin Graham, evangelist Franklin Graham. Joe Biden has declared tomorrow, Easter Sunday, as Transgender Day of Visibility, as if Biden made it up. My dude, it's been going on for 15 years. This once again shows how little respect President Biden and his administration have for God. On the most significant day of the Christian calendar, yada, 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 something, something. They use this opportunity to flaunt sin, to glorify sin, and to celebrate sin. And that, my friends, is why Franklin Graham is going to vote for Donald Trump, the man who never sins, apparently. I don't get these people. Instead of, what is the sin that he's mad about? That trans people exist, and that the proclamation says, hey, look, they exist. That is what has these Christians so worked up, and they can't get over it, and they're so mad about it. Like, just the worst people ever. Like, even if Biden picked the date himself, which he did not, the idea that no one else is allowed to do anything else on a Christian holiday except celebrate the Christian holiday is such a cocky, arrogant way to think. Like, guess what? Not everyone celebrates Christmas either. In fact, this Christmas also happens to be the first day of Hanukkah. Can't wait to see all these people go fully anti-Semitic at that point. Like, Christians don't get to own December. They don't get to own December 25th. They don't get to own Easter Sunday. If they want to celebrate those days, they can. No one is stopping them. But the rest of us don't have to take your fairy tale seriously. We are not part of your book club. The idea that, oh, you issued a proclamation. How dare you do two things at once? And their followers eat it up because they're not good critical thinkers. They like ignorance. They like being told that these other people are evil. They don't believe Biden is a real Christian anyway. This is a survey. I think I talked about this in a previous show, but this is a recent survey from the Pew Research Center. Check this out. Very few Americans see Biden and Trump as very religious. But look at the Republican numbers on that side for Joe Biden. Look at this. When it comes to Republicans here and Joe Biden, how many Republicans think Joe Biden is very religious or somewhat religious? It's 29% only. 69% of Republicans say Joe Biden is either not too religious or not at all religious. That is objectively false. He is like super Catholic. I realize my face is covering up the very number I want you to look at. But yeah, like, there it is. 69% of them don't think Biden is religious. So, of course, when he issues the Trans Day of Visibility proclamation on Easter Sunday, they're like, well, see, we told you he's not really religious at all. Just total ignorance here. And honestly, none of the critics have explained one. I have not found it yet, how Easter Sunday was ruined by this proclamation. Like, if your Easter Sunday was spoiled because Joe Biden issued a proclamation to recognize trans people, maybe your faith isn't that strong. maybe you don't really care about this Jesus thing after all. Like, if Biden actually wanted to persecute Christians, which is not a thing he wants to do because he is Christian, why the hell would he do it via a proclamation honoring trans people 2 days before Easter Sunday in a thing no one would have really even noticed? Like, none of this makes sense, even on the bigot's terms. And here's the other thing I did not see. I did not see a lot of prominent conservative Christians calling out all this misinformation. Like, if they're out there, they were very few and far between. Like, admitting the truth, I think, could alienate the diehards, and conservative Christians have shown an incredible lack of courage over the past several years when it comes to calling out their own people, even when reality is staring them in the face. So, where are the pastors who say, stop making a big deal about this? Where are the news anchors on conservative news outlets, conservative outlets saying, yeah, this is BS. This isn't a real story. Let's skip this. And I mean, to their credit, the Biden administration didn't take the bait. This is what they said. This is in Newsweek. But in response to the criticism, White House press secretary, blah, 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 said, as a Christian who celebrates Easter with family, President Biden stands for bringing people together and upholding the dignity and freedoms of every American. Sadly, it's unsurprising politicians are seeking to divide and weaken our country with cruel, hateful, and dishonest rhetoric. President Biden will never abuse his faith for political purposes or for profit, which is a really good statement. And I don't think I saw that being repeated much, so I don't know how much of an effect it has, but it should. Like, it would have been perfectly easy for Joe Biden, who I have a lot of criticism about. It would have been so easy for them not to issue any proclamation at all, especially given how much conservative zealots flip out at any mention of trans people. So I'm glad he did it. And this kind of right-wing response, though, it's predictable. And Joe Biden did this anyway, and he did it forcefully. Like, it may be symbolic, but symbols carry a lot of weight. And I have so much more criticism for these Christian liars because they don't give a shit about the sanctity of their faith, because then they would condemn Trump for a story I'm going to talk about in a second about his Bible. Like, if they actually cared about someone ruining Christianity, it's not Joe Biden for issuing a proclamation about trans people. It's the guy who's using Christianity as a weapon to win an election he probably couldn't win on his own. I think I'll stop there. Oh, these people. All right. I'm just looking through any comments here. Ooh. Yes, Easter falls on different days each year. Thank you. Next year, Easter will fall on 420. Maybe Jesus will show up with edibles. That'd be a nice thing to find in the Easter egg. I appreciate that. Oh, Robin, thank you. Trans people get 1 day. Republicans, that's 1 day too many. Indeed. I think Christians now own Easter and Christmas and the rest of December and whatever month they want to decide is White History Month. What else do we have? Oh, this is good. Christians celebrate Easter based on the moon because they were taking over a Wiccan holiday. Thank you. What else do we have here? Just double checking. It is hard to talk and read at the same time. Thank you, Keith. Jesus was transubstantiated. Jesus takes on many forms. God takes on many forms. Like, they don't have one pronoun. They are multiple things, and yet trans doesn't work with these people. I don't know. Oh my God, you guys commented so much during that story, which I appreciate. And I'm trying to read very, very quickly. Some of these are very amusing and completely inappropriate to show on screen. By the way, I didn't mention this in the story, but they also did the Easter egg hunt, and conservatives also flipped out, and they said there's a rule that Biden issued that said when people decorate their Easter eggs, they can't have religious symbols on it, and they made a big deal about it. Where did that go? This isn't going to go up on YouTube, but I'm going to show you this anyway. Look at this. When Mike Johnson issued his tweet here, he said his tweet, but look at this. He had the one picture of Biden proclaiming Easter Sunday Trans Day visibility, and there's the other one he posted from a right-wing website. White House bans religious Easter egg from art contest. Again, this is Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House. And what's the real story that he's talking about? The egg roll, the Easter egg thing that happens outside the White House every year, it's sponsored by like an egg lobbying group. And for 45 years now, they've said, we're going to do this Easter egg thing outside the White House, but we want to make sure it's only fun. So you can't decorate it with political messages and no religious messages. Just put a nice face on it. That's a rule that's been in place for 45 years. So the White House did not ban religious Easter eggs, but the rules say, if you're decorating an Easter egg, no, you can't put a religious symbol on them. That rule was in place now, yes, and it was also in place during the Trump administration and years prior to that for 45 years. But again, this is how Republicans operate. They just twist that little piece of information to get a headline so that dumb people will flip out because they don't know any better. Because Mike Johnson is not a smart man, but the people who vote for people like Mike Johnson are way more ignorant. I believe, I forgot which outlet this particular headline came from, but I think Breitbart retracted its post saying as much, because even they were like, yeah, this is not a story. We can't stand behind this. And if a propaganda outlet says, yeah, this is too far, we can't get away with this, like that should be a clue that maybe you've gone too far. Let me get ready to do another story here, and I'm just looking through here. Okay, I think I got most of them. Let me jump to a story that I did not get to cover because I was gone last week, but I absolutely wanted to cover this. Donald Trump is selling a Bible. He is selling a Bible. He put his name. I don't know if he put his name on the Bible, but he is selling copies of the Bible. And here's the website in case you would like to see it, in case you haven't seen it yet. Here you go. This is the God Bless the USA Bible. And that would be Donald Trump there next to Lee Greenwood, who wrote that song, God Bless the USA. And he's been banking on it ever since. But if you're not familiar with the backstory here, you may have seen a lot of the headlines and jokes about how Trump is selling a Bible. I don't know how many people heard the backstory about this thing, but basically, the Bible that Donald Trump is selling, it includes the text of the Bible. It includes the text of the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Pledge of Allegiance, and the handwritten chorus of Lee Greenwood's song. It's a Christian nationalist wet dream. And Donald Trump basically made a 3-minute promotional ad to get people to buy this Bible. He said the Bible costs $60, $59.99 plus shipping. And this was online. And he said in the video, we've lost religion in our country. All Americans need a Bible in their home, and I have many. It's my favorite book. He hasn't read it. Trump said, our founding fathers did a tremendous thing when they built America on Judeo-Christian values. Now that foundation is under attack, perhaps as never before. But again, as I've said, who's attacking Christianity? No one has been worse for Christianity than Donald Trump, if you're talking about like reputation. Because why would you want to be a Christian now? It's the Trump religion. Jesus Christ. Anyway, he has said before, the Bible is his favorite book. But in 2015, when he was running for president, he was asked in an interview, what's your favorite verse? And of course, he doesn't know any verses. So he's like, it's private. I can't tell you. I would never tell you. And then they asked him, are you an Old Testament or a New Testament guy? And the answer is New Testament, because that's the Jesus part. And what did Donald Trump say? Probably equal, because he doesn't know the difference, because he's never read the book. He doesn't care. Anyway, what is Trump's personal involvement with this Bible? This is the part of the story I did not see in a lot of places. And this is interesting because I covered this years ago because in 2021, Lee Greenwood tried selling this book by himself. He tried selling the God Bless the USA Bible. It's the exact same book. This is an archived copy of the same website. You could see it was $49.99 back then, but now Trump needs a cut. So they upped the price in order to give Trump some money. But it's all the same stuff. You could see what's inside of this older Bible. It's all the same stuff. Exact same thing. So what happened with this Bible? Basically, I assume no one bought it. Like, who cares? Why would I want a Lee Greenwood Bible? I don't. No one needs that. But here's what was really interesting about this. When Lee Greenwood announced that he was selling this $49.99 Bible a few years ago, there were two important things that happened. First is that a bunch of Christian authors who write for HarperCollins and its affiliates came out and said, stop selling this book. Stop trying to politicize the Bible. This is an article from a website, Religion Unplugged, but they covered it well. Why we are glad our publisher isn't backing the God Bless the USA Bible. Because it turns out the publisher making this book, they actually said, no, we are not going to publish the Lee Greenwood Bible here. But a bunch of these authors said, like, stop doing this Christian nationalist thing. They actually, there was also a petition online that said this is a toxic mix that will exacerbate the challenges to American evangelicalism, adding fuel to the Christian nationalism and anti-Muslim sentiments found in many segments of the evangelical church. And these petitions, they called for Zondervan, the publisher, and HarperCollins to stop publishing the book. And that article I just showed you, what happened is that HarperCollins said, we didn't actually have a deal with Lee Greenwood. I think his people asked us, I'm paraphrasing here, but his people asked us, what would it cost to make this Bible? And we gave them a price, and they went ahead and ran with it, but we never signed anything. We are not publishing this right now. So that's interesting. Remember back in the good old days when Trump was just in office, but a bunch of Christians were like, this Christian nationalist stuff is scary and we want nothing to do with it. That is something a lot of them used to say. And now a bunch of them have been very quiet about that. But here's the other thing that happened. Not only did HarperCollins and Zondervan not publish the Lee Greenwood Bible, there was also a problem with what Lee Greenwood was selling. Because, and this is a little insider's ball game here, but Lee Greenwood was using a translation of the Bible known as the NIV, and the NIV translation of the Bible is like trademarked. And it's trademarked, I believe, by Zondervan or Thomas Nelson or those Christian imprints. Like, you cannot, the Bible is free. You could publish certain texts of the book, but if you publish a certain translation of the Bible, that's plagiarism because other people translated that and you're not allowed to use that. And that's what Lee Greenwood was using. So that's another reason the publishers are like, you can't put this out there like this. So the Trump Bible that came out in the past couple of weeks, it's the same book Lee Greenwood was trying to sell, but it's $10 more expensive. And they use the King James version of the Bible, which is the free version anyone can use, but it sounds like something written in the 1600s and not like the English we speak today. So this is how they're getting away with it. And also, who's publishing the book? I don't know, but it's not the publishers they were thinking about before. So that's why they're able to get away with it now. A couple other things that are interesting about the Trump Bible. There is an FAQ on the website. This is the website for the Trump Bible. This is the God Bless the USA Bible. And if you scroll down here, there is a frequently asked questions like this one. Is the Bible officially endorsed by Donald Trump? Yes, this is the only Bible endorsed by Donald Trump. It's a weird thing. Why does the Bible need an endorsement from a guy whose hand should be burning when he holds a copy of it? That's a weird thing. But I don't think that question is nearly as weird as this one, What if my Bible has sticky pages? What? Why? Why would your Bible have sticky pages? Let us read this together. Are some of the pages in your Bibles sticking together? Like the jokes write themselves here. No worries. This is very common with new Bibles that have what is this? That have gold gilding around the edges of the paper. For your convenience, we have provided links to a YouTube video that does a wonderful job of explaining how to break your new Bible in. They literally have to have a question that teaches Christians how to open the damn book because a bunch of them are like, my book won't open. Ah, well, I guess I'm done with it. As if any of these people buying this were going to read it. Like, come on. Um, like buying a Trump Bible, it's a symbolic act. It's like buying a red MAGA hat. It's not because you care about the product. It's because you want to buy a symbol of devotion to the only higher power these people care about, Trump. By the way, do you remember like last month when Trump was selling sneakers that were like solid gold or fake gold or whatever it was? What he did is he just took over some other sneaker and stamped his name on it like he does with everything else. And he actually has a company, CIC Ventures, that handles Trump's name, likeness, and image. And they gave that license to the people making those sneakers. And Lee Greenwood and his company, I guess, gave the license to Trump for making this Bible. It's literally just the same product that someone else made, but Trump decided to stamp his name on it and then try to hawk it in the hopes that you'll buy it so he gets a cut. So that's been happening for a while. Like, again, I think it is messed up. I've said this before, I'll say it again. For Christians to act like Trump is a protector of their faith, it means they are supporting a thrice married racist who paid hush money to a porn star he was having an affair with while his current wife was pregnant with his fifth child. He is a sexual abuser. He is the 2 Corinthians guy. He is the guy who was caught on tape bragging about non-consensually grabbing women because he was a celebrity and he could get away with it. He lies about everything. He says he doesn't need forgiveness. He held up a Bible in front of a church after his team used tear gas to drive away peaceful protesters. That's who these people are supporting because they think he's the guy defending their faith. Like, if you think that guy is in any way compatible with the main character of your favorite book, you haven't read the book. And good luck trying to get anyone else to take your belief seriously. I wish there was a bigger fuss from Christians about the fact that Trump was doing this, but I think they're so used to Trump just using their faith as a weapon that none of them care anymore. Very few of them care anymore. I'll pause there, look at some comments before I get to something else. That story was wild. I did enjoy how many late night TV shows made jokes about the Trump Bible, like it was on Saturday Night Live last week. It was the focus of so many comedy segments. This is fun. Wait, the Constitution is included in that Bible? Maybe Christians will buy it and learn how they are violating the constitutional rights of their country, the rest of the country. Yeah, maybe they'll see the First Amendment. Maybe they'll see the part about no religious test for public office. But that would assume they're going to open up the book, and they will not. Because if you're buying this Bible, like, who are the people buying this Bible because they don't have any? They're not buying it because they want to read it. Seriously, none of these people have heard of the Gideons. Seriously, you can get a Bible for free. I heard it's even online now. None of these people buying it seem to know this. I still want to know how many times they got asked about a sticky Bible that they never did it. This is an interesting. I think Bohemian Lucy, you were talking about when Trump was holding the Bible in front of the church with the tear gas thing, and it's that iconic picture because it just shows Trump at his worst. I don't believe it was upside down. There was a lot of stuff wrong with that book and Trump holding it, but I don't remember it actually being upside down, though I did hear that rumor. So I'm going to skip that. I don't think that was true, though. Which version is, this is interesting. Which version is online of the Bible? this is interesting. If you go to Bible Gateway, which is the source I use if I'm trying to look for a Bible verse, they actually have all the translations up there with credit given, because they have like a gazillion translations you could choose from, and you can compare and contrast and all that. And people make their own translations of the Bible. And there are many things. Like, I'm not the expert in that world, but you could find any translation you want. But if you're going to use someone else's translation, and then, like, for example, recently someone wrote, I forgot her name, but she's famous for translating like the Iliad and the Odyssey. And these are her translations of these famous texts. Could anybody print the Iliad and the Odyssey? Yes, they could. But what you can't do is steal her translation of it. That's something she owns the copyright to, because that's her original work. So you can't just take someone else's translation without whatever credit you need to give. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to a different story here. Oh, let's talk about this. I'm excited to talk about this. Okay. So there is a solar eclipse happening on Monday, a total solar eclipse. It's not that it's rare. I think these eclipses happen, I think I read, once every 18 months, but they happen in different parts of the world. So the fact that in the United States we will be able to see a total eclipse if you're in the certain pathway of that eclipse, and for everybody else like me who lives outside that pathway, you'll be able to see like a partial eclipse that's still pretty damn cool. It's exciting. That's very neat. So what's interesting is that 6 prisoners in New York are suing the state of New York because they say you're not allowing us to watch the eclipse on Monday, and that violates our religious freedom, which is a very interesting approach to use here. And basically, all 6 plaintiffs are incarcerated at Woodbourne Correctional Facility in New York. And they say in their lawsuit that the eclipse is a religious event that they must witness and reflect on to observe their faiths. And the ringleader of this lawsuit is an atheist. His name is Jeremy Zelinsky, and he says this event is a way to celebrate science and reason. And I want to show you an aspect of a declaration he made. Check this out. This is not in the lawsuit. This is in the supplementary material. But this is one of the things he wrote, and I think it's really interesting to read. This is from the atheist who is suing the state. In this case, I asked to observe the April 8th solar eclipse to celebrate scientific achievement. I believe that by celebrating the curiosity behind discoveries like astrophysics and the ability to know precisely when an eclipse will occur, we can inspire even more penetrating inquiries. Issues like the nature of time, of life, of human connection. I'm going to stop there. Very interesting way to put it. Okay. I'm also going to scroll down here because this kept going and it was interesting. Check this part out. Here we go. It's for this reason I believe that what I've referred to as Eclipse Day simply, absolutely, unavoidably must be a multi-faith event. Whatever their mistakes, and this includes atheism, the world's great religions all have this much in common. They seek truth because they recognize its divinity. Every religion worthy of the name originated in a single individual becoming aware of some greater part of reality than their contemporaries were capable of perceiving. Interesting. Very fascinating way to put it. And then he says here, where did this go? Yeah, right there. The most effective way to identify the areas of darkness we most need to explore, to disseminate awareness of how to enlighten them quickly, is to bring as many people as possible together who have exercised their faith, not in the same way, but in different ways. And then one last thing he wrote here that I just thought this is really interesting to read. I know this case is immeasurably small. The eclipse I seek to observe with others is fleeting, an event that will be gone in a cosmic instant, barely measurable against infinite time. But that same fleetingness makes it valuable in as large a degree as its duration is brief. This man's a poet. Moments when people of vastly different faiths converge in a single shared joy are exceedingly rare. The price of missing any is unknowable, but substantial by any measure. So this is the atheist argument as to why, as an atheist, he has to see the eclipse. And the interesting thing is, the other 5 plaintiffs, here's what happened. This guy, Jeremy Zelinsky, apparently he asked the prison back in January for permission to see the eclipse. And first he was told, well, we need to recognize that atheism is a religion, and that could take us 4 months to do. And the eclipse might be over by then. So we could argue about that, but the long and short of it is they did recognize atheism as a religion, which they should have, because the U.S. Federal Department of Corrections already does that. And they said, you know what, atheist inmate, you can watch the eclipse. In fact, we're going to give you special glasses so you can do it, which is very nice. So after he got permission to do that in January, I don't know whether he started talking to other inmates, but someone else at the prison says, well, the eclipse is important to me too because of my religious faith. I'm a Muslim. And they argued that they just wanted to do what the Prophet Muhammad did. I guess there's something in the Quran that says Muhammad witnessed an eclipse. And then you had a Baptist saying, I want to witness what Jesus witnessed before getting crucified. And then 2 people who practice Santeria, and I know very little about that religion outside the Sublime song, they said, we need to watch the eclipse in order to cause the vibrations of the Orishas to bless those who pray and chant. I don't know what any of that means. But basically, you had 6 guys now saying it's my religious obligation to watch the eclipse, and you have to accommodate me because it's my religion. And at that point, when you start having a lot of inmates saying we all want to see the eclipse, the New York Department of Corrections issued a statement saying, y'all, we got to say no to all of this. And this is what they put out. This is the statement from the Department of Corrections issued last month, March 11th. 2024. You can see here, this is coming from the acting commissioner of the Department of Corrections here. But this is the important bit. On April 8th, 2024, all facilities will operate on a holiday schedule. There will be no incarcerated movement in facilities from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., and incarcerated individuals will remain in housing units except for emergency situations. Translating that, all that guy is saying is, sorry, I don't care what promises you were given before, but on Monday between 2 and 5, which is when the eclipse would happen in New York, all of you are in your cells. None of you can get out unless there's an emergency. That is that. You also can't have visitors, all that stuff. So basically, they shut down the chance for any of these prisoners to watch the eclipse from like the courtyard of the prison. And that is what led to this lawsuit, because basically now there's no way for any of these people to witness the eclipse unless they have a good reason to do it, unless they can file a lawsuit over it. And how do you win a lawsuit like this? You say, well, it's not just something I want to do, it's something my religion requires me to do. And by the way, that argument has worked in front of the US Supreme Court. If you have a football coach who's like, I want to pray at midfield, it's my religion. I want to own a company and sell cake, and I want to be a florist, and I want to take wedding pictures, and I want to make wedding websites, but I don't want to do it for gay people, and it's my religion. And the Supreme Court's like, well, okay, civil rights don't matter if it's your religion. And so these guys are like, well, then let's just say it's our religion. Are they sincere about it? I don't know. The thing about religion in the law is that it doesn't matter what I think. If they say it's their sincerely held religious belief, we have to take it at face value. So this is why they sued. And what the lawsuit said is that the New York prison system was basically violating the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, RLUPA, which is basically like the religious freedom laws when it comes to incarcerated people. And these people are all saying, by not letting us see the eclipse, you're violating our faith. And for example, the Department of Corrections said, hey, Baptist guy who's suing us, we are not allowing you to see the eclipse because we have a calendar and there's no event on the calendar that says, I'm sorry, what they said is the solar eclipse is not a recorded holy day for Baptists in the facility's calendar. So that's why they rejected that guy's request. And the lawsuit says, sorry, it's not for you to decide what events matter to people of faith based on your calendar. We get to decide that. And so far, as of like earlier this week, the department was not budging. In fact, they put out a statement here. This is from Tuesday. This is from the Washington Post. In a statement, the Department of Corrections spokesperson said the ban was for the safety of the prison population. Basically, the prison's argument here is, well, it's going to get really dark. That's how eclipses work. And if all these prisoners are outside in the open, in the jail, but like in the open, and it's totally dark outside, that's bad. We can't keep everyone safe, and we got to think about safety. The problem with that argument is that there was a partial eclipse a few years ago, and they didn't do any lockdown procedure. You know what happens every day when the sun comes down? There are prisoners outside in the courtyard then too. It's not like they say you're not allowed to be out there, because they have protocols in place to deal with safety. So, I don't know how seriously to take this excuse. The department says it will provide solar eclipse safety glasses for its staff and inmates in case they can view the eclipse from their assigned work location or housing units. Yeah, see, we're nice. We'll give them safety glasses so that if they're stuck in their cell, they can look outside the window like this and maybe see it. But what they can't do is go to the courtyard where they have a full view and use their glasses to actually witness the eclipse. They're saying no. And listen, there are arguments that I have read online. I'm sure it's the first thing that came to a lot of your minds as well. Maybe I missed this in the comments while I'm talking. A lot of people are like, toss out this lawsuit because, we're talking about criminals. If they wanted to experience nice things like witnessing an eclipse, they shouldn't have done the crime. Here's the problem with that argument. They are in prison. They are paying for their crimes, and they still have rights. And that includes the right to practice their faith. And if government officials want to get in the way of that, they still need to have a damn good reason for it. And one thing I have not talked about is the nature of all these guys' crimes. There is a reason that Atheist is in prison. It's not innocuous. It's a serious reason. I'm not defending it, but I am saying this is an inmate. He's guilty. He's in prison. He is doing the time. That doesn't negate anything that is happening in this lawsuit. The question is, does their argument here have any merit? And right before I went live here, I did see something in the case docket for this case. It said that both sides have agreed to a settlement. It's not a financial settlement, but both sides have agreed on something. I don't know what, but the 6 inmates have now dropped their case. That just happened a couple of hours before I'm making this video. And the thing is, I don't know what the compromise is here. Why did the plaintiffs drop their case? Because this whole thing has to be resolved before the eclipse on Monday. So something has to happen. I don't know what the compromise is. Did the jail say, okay, those 6 dudes are allowed to watch the eclipse, but nobody else? Did they say, okay, we take back our statement and anyone who wants to watch it can watch it, and we'll just put additional safety protocols in place if we need it? I don't know. I do think, though, it's really interesting that these prisoners figured out the loophole, if this is what transpires, that if we say it's our religion, we should be able to do it. It's dangerous when people who are not in prison use that argument in the courts, because it's been successful under a conservative judiciary. I don't like that rule. But if they can get away with it in front of the Supreme Court, I have a hard time understanding why that argument would not work for these guys in prison. So I'm very curious what this compromise is. Maybe by the time this video gets published as a clip, maybe we'll have an answer, but I don't know what it is yet. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let me skip around and just see if there's any other questions here before I go on to a different story. I'm excited to watch it. It'll be cool. I hope you all have glasses and you don't stare at the sun like Donald Trump. This is an interesting, wasn't the wedding designer story made up? This is the woman who went to the Supreme Court saying, I want to design websites, but I don't want to design websites for gay people. And it turned out no gay people had ever asked her to design a wedding website for them. They just made it up. It was all theoretical, and the Supreme Court gave her a win anyway because it's not legitimate. Yeah, this is a fair point, Bittersweet Dragon. Also, not all incarcerated people are guilty. You are right about that. The reason I bring that up is because the atheist at the center of the story I just talked about, as far as I could tell, he is. I mean, I think he said as much. And it was a heinous crime. Like, so the point you raise is a good one. I don't know the story for all the people who are suing over this thing, who have now dropped their lawsuit, but that is a fair point to bring up. Anything else here I am missing? Oh, this is Robin speaking up. The internet says the settlement is the 6 inmates get to watch, but nobody else. If that's true, and I don't know, I haven't seen it for myself yet. If that is true, that just gives more credence to the idea that if we say it's our religion, we can get away with anything. And that incentivizes more inmates and more people in general to just get away with whatever they want that way by just saying, it's my faith. And that seems like a really dangerous thing to do. I don't love that. But we'll see. Okay. Let me talk about this story. Here we go. Let us discuss. I want to show you this. Oh my God. Here we go. So it turns out Mississippi just erected a giant Christian cross. I'm going to show you a picture of it. That's it right there. It's 120 feet tall. It is 60 feet wide. It is 0% useful. But the important thing about this, there it is. A giant cross erected along Aberdeen Highway. This is in Aberdeen, Mississippi. It's giant. You can see the community coming out to celebrate the installation of this giant cross. But the only important thing to point out in this article is down here. The project cost $240,000. It's $250,000 almost. This giant Christian cross that they just erected in like rural Mississippi. They've been fundraising for this for like 3 years. They finally got the money they needed. It's $250,000. And the thing is, I mean, we can all joke about that's a dumb use of money because it is. This is apparently the 14th giant Christian cross that has been put up in Mississippi. And according to the guy constructing them all, this is the 20th giant cross his company has put up. That's $4.8 million on these structures. All of these appear to be legal. Like the nonprofits were formed to raise money for this. It's all donations. It's not government money, but it doesn't mean any of us have to take it seriously. But it does raise a lot of questions. For example, why are these people deluded enough to think that the one thing lacking in Mississippi is a symbol of Christianity? Why do you need a cross in Mississippi? If you said we need a cross in like Vermont or Oregon, okay, fine, we can have a conversation, I guess. But Mississippi, look at this. This is a map of the most religious states in America. The more blue it is, the more religious it is. And you could see above my head, Mississippi is tied for #1 most religious state in the country with Alabama. Like, they're not lacking Christianity in Mississippi. So what are we doing with this giant cross? Also, if someone said, I was driving down the road and I saw a giant Christian cross on the side of the highway and then I converted, how seriously would you take that person's declaration of faith? Like, come on, if you converted because you saw a cross on the side of the highway, I don't think your faith is that strong. Am I being judgmental? Yes. And I've earned it. There are also elected officials who are promoting these crosses, which I don't love. In this case, in Aberdeen, the cross was apparently a dream of the Monroe County Sheriff and the Mississippi Northern District Public Service Commissioner. And a different cross was literally endorsed by a sheriff who was on the Cross Project Committee. I'm not saying the government's paying for this stuff, but there are people who are government officials who are using their titles to endorse what's going on here. That's messed up. If the argument is that we need to put up this cross to send people a message about Christianity in the hopes that they will convert, I'm just saying, if you use that $240,000 and donated it to like a children's hospital, or you decided to set up a food truck to give food to the needy, I think that would be a better marketing tool to bring people to Christianity than putting up a giant cross that helps nobody. Like, in terms of getting more bang for your buck, who are you helping with this? Nobody. Like, I don't get it. I don't get the strategy behind this. But I think the thing that was most messed up was a comment made by the constructor who made most of these crosses. Here's what he said, which again, I think is silly. This is from an older article. That's why the formatting is weird. But look at this. As a Christian businessman, Mike Rozier sees these projects as his ministry. I've had people ask me almost on every cross, that's a lot of money to spend on a cross just for people to drive by and look at. I tell them, yes, it is. We need to spend that money on other things to further the kingdom of God also. But if one person drives down Highway 45 and looks at this cross and thinks about what Jesus did for him, and he has a conversion moment, it's worth every penny. It is not. I'm sorry. It's not worth every penny. Maybe $2, but it's not worth $240,000. That's a dumb thing to say. But it's not as dumb as what that same constructor, Mike Rozier, said in a different article about this Aberdeen cross that just went up. Oh, you're going to laugh at this one. Mike Rozier said this cross is the 14th in Mississippi and the 20th the company has installed overall. Everywhere you look, people say Mississippi is number 49 or 50 and this or that. We're number 1 in the number of crosses in just one state. Like, my dude, that is not the flex you think it is. We're 50th in healthcare. We're 49th in education. But we're number 1 when it comes to wasting our money on stupid Christian shit that anyone can look at if they don't know how the internet works. Like, how does this help? You're not even helping your own case. And I had to look this up too, because I didn't know much about Aberdeen, Mississippi. But look at, this is from Data USA. I don't know how accurate these are, but this is the first thing I found. Look at this number next to my head here. The 2021 median household income is under 50,000. That's a household income of under 50,000. That's not a lot. And the 2021 poverty rate, 20.7%. Like 1 out of 5 people in Aberdeen live in poverty. And these people are like, we have a giant box full of $240,000. What can we do with it? Let's put up a thing for Jesus that no one cares about. Like, buddy, that's why you're all poor. You're not helping anybody. You could have taken $240,000, built a house, and like let homeless people stay in it. And that would have been a better use of your money and better marketing for Christianity than whatever the hell you think you're doing. I mean, some cities invest in new businesses. Some churches use donations to help their communities. These people are spending their money on a monument to a faith that pretty much everyone in the community already belongs to. It's no wonder Mississippi, more than so many other states, is suffering from brain drain, where the people with the most formal education are like, I need to get the hell out of here and take my talents to Long Beach, South Beach, instead of bringing it back home and bringing money to my community. One last thing I want to point out here. When I was researching this, I saw this picture. This is of the Aberdeen cross. And the thing I circled right above my head here, There's this sign right outside that Aberdeen cross, and I know you can't see it. It says dispensary. There is a legal weed dispensary, like right across the street from this place. I don't know the nature of it. It's called Wildflower Medical Dispensary, so maybe it's not just a weed dispensary. But one of the things that made me laugh is there was a comment someone posted because this dispensary has been putting up videos of the cross going up on its Facebook page. And someone commented, here it is. That was so cool to watch. Can't wait for 420. Like completely serious. No hypocrisy there, just some good times. Which, to be fair, I mean, if you got to stand next to this giant cross all day, you probably need some weed. I'll pause there. Looking at any comments. I got one last story for you after this, and then I'll call it a night. But just seeing if there's anything else going on here. Isn't Mississippi one of the poorest states also? Yes. Yes, it is. This is great. Yeah, like the state with the most crosses wins? Yes, apparently. There's a contest that no one knew about. Like if I'm Alabama, instead of 14 crosses that are 120 feet tall, just get one that's 121 feet tall and call it a day and just put little Alabama flags next to it right on the border. That's what they should do. It seems like something Alabama would do. I'm sure they already have a giant cross there. Who are these people who think this is a good idea? Thank you for gifting or being gifted a membership. That's awesome. Thank you. And thank you for the super sticker as well. I appreciate that. Anything else here before I get to that last story? Oh, look at that. I like this. Thank you for the membership, Mrs. Nesbitt. People are just so nice in this comment thread, helping each other out. What do they win? What do they win if they have the most crosses? It better not be financial, because I know what they're going to spend the money on. It would be a waste of everyone's time. All right, I'm getting to the last story here. This is news that will surprise, I think, literally zero of you. But it seems like religion, the religiously unaffiliated in America are the fastest growing religious group in America. They now comprise a quarter of the population, about 26%. And PRRI, I think they're called the Public Religion Research Institute, they just published a survey that went into depth about why people are leaving organized religion. And I wanted to talk about that because I found this really interesting, because the focus of the survey was religious change. What changed between your childhood religion and whatever it is you believe now? And I'm going to show you this graphic here from the survey. And it's a lot to take in. So bear with me. I'll leave this up here so you could see it. This is all about religious switching in the US in 2023 as percentages of the population. And I'm going to zoom in here. Look at this. So let's talk about what this means. These people who took the survey, they asked people, what percentage of you were white evangelicals when you were a kid? And 13.6% of people said, yeah, I was a white evangelical Protestant. And then look at the fourth column. What are you today? And 13.7% of people said, I'm a white evangelical Protestant today. That's not much switching. I'm not saying those are the same 13.6 or 7, like who just stayed with their faith. Some people dropped out. Some people came in. The numbers haven't changed much. But look what happens when you talk about like white Catholics. 17.8% of people surveyed said, yeah, I'm white and I was a Catholic growing up. But look what it is today. It's 11.8%. A lot of white Catholics are no longer Catholic. They stopped being Catholic at some point between childhood to adulthood. So that's interesting. This is also true for Hispanic Catholics. That dropped, what is that, 3.4% right there, 11.6 to 8.2. How about Mormons? They haven't changed a bit. If you were a Mormon growing up, you're stuck for life. But look at the last one, unaffiliated. This is what's fascinating. Only 10.4% of Americans said I had no religious affiliation as a kid. But now, 26% of adults surveyed said they're religiously unaffiliated. So basically, all these people are dropping out of certain religions at some point after childhood, and it seems like we're the ones picking them all up. Like, people are not going from like white Catholicism to I'm Mormon now. Like, that applies to maybe 2 people. But like, it's not happening. Mostly what's happening is people are saying, yeah, I grew up in religion. I was a Christian growing up, and now I am not. And they are one of us. Doesn't mean they're atheists. It just means they don't belong to any organized religion. I find that fascinating. And it's interesting because we have the biggest gain. Again, 18.1% of Americans, this is the second number. This is right over here. 18.1% of Americans say they became non-religious after growing up in a religious faith. Only 2.5% of people said, I grew up non-religious and I found God. So these are the people who came into our group. These are the people who left our group, which means we have a net positive. This is good for us. You know what I mean? So I found that really interesting to look at. To put this another way, for every one person who becomes Catholic, nearly 7 people leave Catholicism in the US. But for every one non-religious American who finds God, more than 7 people ditch organized religion entirely and join our group. And I find that really interesting. That means it's easier than ever to raise kids without religion, which is also fascinating because how many people grew up with no religious affiliation at all? And the fact that more people are now growing up without religion means it's easier to raise kids without religion. You know how to do it. The stigma is not as bad as it used to be. You are going to start to see more second, third generation nuns, NONES. It's also more likely that we will marry someone outside our childhood faith, making religion even less of a factor in our adult lives. So I found that interesting. Why is that happening? Why are people leaving religion as they get older? Now, the obvious answer to me, ask yourself that question. Why are people ditching religion? The obvious answer is, well, they thought about it and now they no longer believe in God. And in fact, 63% of the unaffiliated group said exactly that. They said more than anything else, we just no longer believe in God. We thought about it. We don't buy it anymore. And I want to show you this survey, this part right here. Reasons for leaving your childhood faith. Oh, come back here. Here we go. Reasons for leaving your childhood faith among unaffiliated Americans. And all you got to do is look at the green lines because that's 2023. And you could see what's the most popular reason people gave for why they left their faith. Number 1, you stopped believing in the religion's teachings. Number 2, the religion's negative teachings about or treatment of gay and lesbian people. The anti-LGBTQ bigotry is the second reason people gave for leaving. And again, people may have more than one reason for leaving. What else? Your family was never that religious growing up. Okay. It's bad for your mental health. Not only is that 32% of people saying that, that's such a new answer to give. They didn't even include that like 7 years ago. So people are saying, I left religion because it's bad for me mentally. Also, all the sex abuse. Also, my church became a MAGA cult. All of those are reasons people are giving for why they left organized religion, which again, fascinating to see in print like that. I will also point out here, the majority of religiously unaffiliated Democrats pointed out that the anti-gay bigotry was the reason they left the church. 61% of Democrats said that, compared to only 18% of Republicans who don't believe in God. Former Catholics are more likely than non-Catholics to say they left the religion because of the sex scandals. which I think strategically what that means is those are the issues. If you're interested in getting people to ditch religion, this is what you focus on. You point out the sex scandals, you point out the anti-trans bigotry, anti-gay bigotry that is happening. Those are reasons people who might otherwise believe in God say, fine, I kind of still believe, but I can't go to church and support an institution like this. And the other thing I would point out is that they also asked by age what's going on. And look at this right here. This is why you left your childhood religion among people who don't believe in God or who don't believe in a higher power, don't have any religious affiliation. But when you sort it by age, look at this. Look at the numbers for the 18 to 29, 30 to 49. What's the number one reason people who are 18 to 29 left religion? You could see the red dot that is right over, where am I going? Right over there. The most popular reason they gave for why they are no longer religious there is they stopped believing in religion's teaching. But I want you to look at the yellow dot. Look right here. Look at this yellow dot for those age groups. Yeah, trying to make this viewable for everybody. The yellow dot seems to shift, and it goes from 60% for the young people to 51 to 37 to 35. That yellow dot is the anti-LGBTQ bigotry. And you could see that for young people, the anti-LGBTQ bigotry played more of a role in why they walked away from religion than it did for older people who they were not swayed by that as much. They just realized God doesn't exist. But everybody said, yeah, I realize God doesn't exist. But why did you leave your church? For young people, the most significant reason is because of the anti-LGBTQ stuff, which again, if you're an atheist, if you're an activist, if you care about trying to get people to ditch God, that's what you focus on because it's the most compelling reason people have for not wanting anything to do with organized religion. But overall, the trend lines are clear. People are walking away from organized religion. They're not trying to replace it with a different form of superstition. They're not all atheists, but it would be disingenuous for religious institutions to call them members. And it's not like the anti-LGBTQ stuff is going away. White evangelicals are going to be anti-LGBTQ. They always have been. They always will be. Catholic Church is fixated upon, you can be gay. You just can't act on it. Catholic Church doesn't even believe trans people exist. White evangelicals don't believe trans people exist. They think it's a fake thing. And all of that's going to push out more people in the largest religious denominations in the country. Then, as white evangelicals and conservative Catholics become further intertwined with Donald Trump and the Republican Party, people who care about democracy, civil rights, science, social justice, they will realize there's no place for them in their churches either. So they will walk away. And what are they going to do at some point to keep people in the fold? Because there are very few pages left in their playbook. At some point, especially as more ex-believers go public about their experiences on social media and whatever docu-series you happen to be watching on Netflix or HBO or whatever, all the bells and whistles churches often historically use to pull people in to attract new members, it becomes a subject of parody. Like we make fun of purity culture and the tricks they use to get people to join in. We're aware of their tactics. We know what to look out for. Like no amount of youth pastor voice is going to override the harm of purity culture, which more people are familiar with because more people who suffered from it are speaking out about it. So the overreach of high school football coaches and right-wing government officials who treat their secular positions as platforms to evangelize, it's all a turnoff. We are seeing that happening. It's not going to stop. And as more kids distance themselves from faith, I think that means the pressure on their friends to convert also diminishes, which is a good thing for all of us. I'm sure for a lot of you who grew up in communities that were very religious and you face that pressure all the time to go to church, to convert, to get baptized, to be born again, whatever, it becomes less of a thing as more people speak out, as it becomes more, as the stigma of being an atheist dissipates. So very good news overall. I'm really happy to see that. I'm just going to do one last search for any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to call it a night here. Thank you all for just joining in, and I really appreciate it. And I will be back at my normal Friday night time next week. This weekend, I'm going to go hiking for the first time in Zion. I'm very excited because I'm going to do Angel's Landing, and I'm going to try not to die. It's very slippery. I have no business going on mountains. I will slip and fall, but I'll try my best to cling to the chains they have so people like me don't fall. What else am I missing here? All right. I'm going to stop there. Thanks all for joining me. I know it was a long one. I hope Dennis is back next week so I don't have to spend a lot of time searching through stuff. I will just leave this here. You could support the channel by going to patreon.com/Hemant. I really appreciate anything you could give. And thank you all for joining me tonight. Have a good weekend. I'll see you next week.